Alright, welcome back everybody. We are trying to follow up pretty quickly here as we just had the official chapter released today of chapter 1108 for the English translation. Abe's making fun of me because I don't say 1108.
1108, it's just so much smoother off the tongue, man.
It definitely is, I'm retraining my brain. But definitely the climax is just getting closer and closer.
It just keeps, it's a continuous climax. Like, we keep thinking we've reached the craziest, and then it just doubles down, gets even more insane. Like, we thought we were nearing the end. Who has any idea at this point?
It could just still jump another level, but we wanted to update you guys on what occurred in this latest chapter, and in the last kind of vein of what we've been doing, where we kind of been jumping from group to group, we figured that would be the best way to kind of break it up for you guys in this one as well.
The chapter unfolded kind of group by group, which kind of made this easier. So we started with the Blackbeard crew of Augur and Devon, you know, having just found Caribou. And he did kind of demonstrate to us not only that he has all of this special knowledge about the ancient weapons tucked away, but also that he's not quite as dumb as he looks. He knows not to just make himself disposable and to hold those cards close to his chest.
Yeah, and I did call him similar to Bardo for Teach in the last one, so he is not nearly the fan Bartolomeo is, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, because Bardo would do anything for the Straw Hats.
He would die for them easily. But they definitely seem like they're kind of planning to head out, so whatever the Blackbeard Pirates are here, they said it in the last chapter, they've come and accomplished their goal, they're pretty much leaving, but that does kind of lead me to the same point I made before in the fact that we still don't know where Luffy is. And we mentioned before that he could have been their inside intel as to why a Gorosei or High Brass from the government was here, but just the fact that they're trying to leave does kind of imply that he is still elsewhere that we have no idea of, and that's probably the scariest thing for him.
And I mean, there was also no official decision regarding whether they even take Caribou, but I feel like it's pretty obvious that they know Blackbeard will want this information, as Caribou said. So I feel like it's pretty safe that he goes with them. Hopefully we find out where Lafitte's at pretty soon, but yeah, at this point it doesn't seem like he's on the island. He's off doing his own mischief.
And so jumping from a group that's leaving the island to one that's now kind of boarding onto the island again, we're going to kind of take a look at the Vice Admirals, and we finally have the names for all of them. I think we only had Bluegrass, Doll, and Doberman prior to this, but now we actually know all of their names. Still, it's not like any of them is the coolest or the most standout, but it is kind of nice that we have a bit more of their characters being fleshed out and they're finally getting involved. But they also are kind of trying to consider leaving anyway.
Yeah, I mean, they said it themselves. It'd be unprecedented to call off the Buster Call. But that's really, if they can't get control of the Pacifista, that's going to be what they have to do.
But they do seem like they've kind of made that priority number one to try and get the possession back. And it was Doberman who kind of stepped up and made the plan to say, alright, well, if Bonney's at the top of the hierarchy, we just have to take her out again and we can take the board back over. Which is some good strategizing on the moment, but he wasn't even the like most ahead of the game because we had man on the ground already.
and honestly, to me, the funny thing is that Tosa seems to be the most like stand out of any of the guys that get introduced in this chapter. You know, he came out of nowhere, was hot on Franky's tail and, you know, their whole team, and looked ready to take them out. Like, was gearing up for a crazy attack, and then out of nowhere.
Just crushed like he was nothing under the axe. At least he got like the broadside of it, but I had to reread it a few times because it seemed like he was closing in fast and then suddenly he was just not a problem.
Gone.
But I did also want to kind of draw attention to the fact that now that we know more Vice Admiral names, there is definitely a consistent theme, it seems, across definitely the Vice Admirals and even up to the Admiral levels, in the fact that we've seen multiple dog names now. Dalmatian kind of has an excuse because he has the Dalmatian fruit, but we obviously have Doberman, and now we have Pomsky and Hound, and even Sakazuki's name when he was the Admiral being Red Dog, Akainu. It's just an interesting observation I've had. It doesn't have to mean anything in particular, but I do think it's kind of a jab by Oda to say, if you're gonna follow such a corrupt group, you kind of have to be blindly loyal like a dog.
Right. It's symbolic of how they act.
Exactly, and especially if you want to rise in that kind of system.
And that's how they're also enacted. Like, you only see the Vice Admirals when we're attacking someone, sicking the dogs on them.
Exactly. And so, let's focus on who they are attacking actually now. So we'll go to a group of 4 people, being Franky, Bonney, Atlas, and Kuma running away. And we can start with Franky being our only Straw Hat being there.
Right, and what is so hilarious is that as the only Straw Hat, Dory and Broggy still don't recognize him despite taking the time to acquaint themselves with all of the crew. And that's because the poster of Franky is the Sunny. So they probably just thought that he was some Vegapunk robot, part of the island.
Which is, he hasn't had his own appearance on any post-time skip poster, so I don't think anybody but the crew and people that met them know what Franky looks like. Which could honestly maybe set him up for some entourage or some kind of infiltration, but we'll have to see. I did say for Bonney initially that she didn't do anything, but Abe had to correct me that she did in fact ask the Giants to go help Luffy and Sanji.
Yeah, and that brought a big old smile to their face too, so that was appreciated.
Yeah, some familiar names for some old friends.
And who literally did nothing was Atlas. Not a word, just mouth wide open gaping, wow, look at this!
Not a single line of dialogue as she watched a Vice Admiral get crushed by an axe. But, good emoji face. And then the only one kind of worth noting we wanted to bring back attention to, because there didn't seem like anywhere else decided in besides maybe with the Vice Admirals, but another giant that was mentioned again in this chapter being Saul and his connection to Doll.
Which to me was interesting just because, one, it doesn't seem like Doll is that old, and two, just the connection that Saul already had to O'Hara, and now could also have to the end of Egghead. And Vegapunk as well.
And just a loose tangent we should throw in here because we were discussing it earlier, but the concept of Saul just turning sides and randomly showing up at O'Hara before Olvia, who tried to go there.
Yeah, the more you think about it, the more it doesn't make sense. It just seems way too coincidental.
Maybe we'll find out more, but for now, it just seems like a weird kind of plot hole. But we'll have to come back to it at a different time. So we'll close in on what is our final group, and the group that definitely has the most action, because after this we only have one individual.
Yes, and man, Luffy, Sanji, Saturn, and Kizaru, the big 2v2. So first we got Saturn, entered Spider Gear 2, he's got his expanded spider legs, coated in poison, and like they said, isn't even trying to look like a human anymore. Got an insane look in his eyes, going feral, or whatever their demonic equivalent is.
Yeah, he's just going crazy, and Sanji at least noticed the poison and warned Luffy, but he himself got blindsided by Kizaru, screwed up the only task Luffy gave him, just said, get him out of here, get Apple Gramps out of here.
Had one job, and he dropped the ball, literally.
Dropped the ball, dropped the Vegapunk, and let him get shot. And that was Kizaru this chapter, at least, finally following through on all those threats that he didn't want to make against Vegapunk, but right after, just pretty much kind of immediately subdued by Luffy.
Yeah, that was a face of a man who was done. He truly was giving up in that moment. And let's talk about that moment, because that's insane. He grabbed Saturn by the face, and Kizaru just, like they were misbehaving pets. And I was just like, I can't let you get away with that, right?
Mm-hmm. I think this is the second or third time we've seen the giant form of Gear 5. The first one popping out of the sky at Onigashima was insane, but this one has a whole different presence to it.
Yeah, there's a whole new level to what he is doing.
And honestly, thank goodness for it, because without it, probably Vegapunk and maybe Sanji would be done for right now.
Yeah.
But that does lead me to kind of speculating, and we were having a debate about this before, but we keep bringing up the odds of Agorose falling, the odds of Saturn losing before we even reach the final war. And so we kind of wanted to take a new approach where we kind of put our percentage on where we think we're at in terms of being on board with thinking he's going to fall here. And I can start by saying I'm feeling like this is kind of an oncoming train, and I'm sitting right around 80% because I'm feeling pretty confident that this man's hubris is really going to be his downfall.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna lie, I came in lower. I was thinking like 50, 60, pretty split, but he just talked me up to about a 70% because there are a lot of parallels, and it does seem just the consistent mistakes out of Saturn, and he's really set himself up at this point, and it's getting hard to see him finding any way out of this.
Especially when he enters a new form and doesn't have a named attack, doesn't have anything, but just gets grabbed like a dog who stole something off the ground he shouldn't eat. Like, that's belittling to one of the world rulers, but unless we see something else, it seems like the situation is very much at hand, and like you said, Kizaru, he just seems like he's done. He's been looking for an excuse to not have to do this, and I can't imagine he's ever been grabbed twice in a day, so that's a good enough excuse for him.
Yeah, Saturn gonna have to show me something. Kizaru, I think I'm out. I'd say about 100% on him being done so.
Yeah, but that does lead us to one last person, and arguably the most important for the chapter, of course, being Stella, Vegapunk. And he is setting up to pretty much completely alter the landscape of the entire One Piece world with an announcement very shades of Whitebeard at the end of Marineford.
Absolutely. And we also found it just really interesting that he started to smile once, his death was basically imminent. Almost as if his death was the trigger for this broadcast to begin. And it may have even been planned that Kizaru helps trigger it by attacking him.
Like, we did mention, you see there's different protocols he installed in Kuma and the Pacifista and stuff like that. He's been his own experiment creating the satellites. I wouldn't put it past the possibility he could have planned for something like this, but maybe that's why Kizaru's being so tempered in his actions. We just have to wait and see. But regardless, this does also seem very reminiscent of what we saw with something like Caesar's broadcast to the underworld when he was demonstrating the power of his weapon. But this is, like everything Vegapunk does, to a better degree and a higher quality, seemingly, as he's addressing in the chapter title and what he says, the whole world, as if everybody in the world is about to see this. So it's worth mentioning, maybe his punk record internet idea has kind of come to fruition, and maybe even expanding on that power source he did realize was Nika in front of him, and that's exactly what he's using to broadcast while Luffy's in Gear 5.
Yeah, and he's obviously about to share some very important truth about the world. He said it himself right there at the end of the chapter. And such a broad statement, with so much gravity behind it, really gives us a lot to consider for what exactly he's about to tell everyone.
Exactly. There's been plenty of lies the world government's been hiding in their closet for a while. The Gorosei's true form would be a pretty straightforward one if he had a camera Den Mushi or something like that, but there could be so much more. He could explain what he's been forced to create for the world government, or the atrocities he had to perform on Kuma.
Yeah, and he could also be uncovering some parts of what was lost to the Ancient Kingdom and the Void Century. He could maybe be showcasing some of the advanced tech, such as the Giant, that we also still believe is coming to life with the power of Nika around it. And although it's unlikely, I know you're a little hesitant with this one, but while he might not know specifically about Emu, I think with all his research that he's done on the Void Century, it is possible that he's at least learned of the existence of a shadow ruler above the Gorosei that they answer to and that truly runs the world.
You can't put anything past the world's smartest man, but my main one that I think would really kind of be poetic would be that he could finally reveal the name of the Ancient Kingdom. The closest we've gotten was Clover, who obviously got gunned down in the process, but this is already a dead man. It's not as though you can kill him twice when he's pre-recorded this message, so there's nothing that can stop him now.
And calling back to Clover, I feel he's also very likely to tell the truth of what happened to Ohara, because that's known as a historic day that the world's been lied to about, and now he can finally vindicate them and tell their true story.
But we're gonna have to wait until next week, luckily no break, to find out what that message is gonna be.
So ready. Keep it coming, Oda.
But we will be here to update you guys with our thoughts. Make sure you guys let us know what you guys think is going to happen or what Vegapunk might be revealing to the world in the comments down below. Subscribe for more content like this in the future, and as always, be crew.